Hello everyone, Ace here, and today we are back with another Ace Impressions, this time having a look at Ocean's Heart. The best way to describe this game is it is essentially a Zelda clone, taking heavy inspiration from the old school top-down games, however with an art style similar to the Toon Link games of Wind Waker and Minish Cap. So let's go ahead and jump right in, shall we? It is, by the way, available on PC for both GOG.com as well as Steam for the low price of $15. And as you can tell, when I say Zelda clone, I really do mean it. I am playing the game right now on an Xbox 360 controller, by the way, which is how I would suggest playing it, but there are a few bugs, and I will be getting to that. Let's go to Spruce Head here. Just so I could show you the fighting. So yeah, typical Zelda stuff. Now, when it comes to healing, that is something that is a little bit different in this game, but let's also show you the magic. The magic, as you could tell, does regenerate, but healing items do not. Instead, you can pick up random stuff like this and craft with it. But I do believe I am getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's go ahead and show you. Basically, the way the health system works is you have these items that you can heal up with by using them, but you do have to find them. So let's go ahead and there we go. For example, the apples here restore up to 2 points each, or 2 hearts each. And I do actually kind of like that system because it means you can quickly heal up if you want to. But the game does have a weird difficulty curve. It does start out a little bit on the harder side because you do actually have to acquire a lot of stuff to get to that point in the first place. So far, so standard in some regards, sure. But let's talk about some of the issues that the game has, and that is some of the bugs. For example, using a controller, you do have the option, by the way, of using the keyboard if you want, or even using the D-pad. However, the current state of the game, the D-pad can kind of bug out, as well as the keyboard. This is what trying to move with it is like if you use a controller. So that is a pretty big problem. Hopefully they do iron that out. But if you take the controller out, I know that for a fact that the bug goes away if you do take the controller out. Another issue, although smaller, not really a bug, but definitely a smaller issue. You know how in Zelda, in the top-down games, you can cut down a whole bunch of grass and whatnot in one swing? Can't really do that here, and also you have to be lined up just perfectly, because if you're not, you will not land your hit, and that is, of course, another problem. Anyways, so those are some of the issues. There's a few other bugs as well. So the game needs polish. I will say that right out of the gate. Another issue has to do with the boomerang, which is the first item you'll actually collect. Sometimes it works perfectly fine like that, and it keeps an enemy stunned, so you can just hit them until they die. Sometimes it keeps them stunned only for one hit, and sometimes it doesn't stun them. And I'm not entirely sure why it acts this way, but it does, and it is definitely an issue to keep in mind. So far I've been getting pretty lucky with the hits. It might be with higher tier enemies that it's having the issue in particular with, but another thing to keep in mind. Then again, this is an indie game made by one man entirely for 15 bucks, so I guess temper your expectations. There is one area, however, in the game that has a nasty difficulty spike, all because the control issues are just not ironed out all that well. And that has to do, yeah, but anyways, otherwise, well, what is there to really say? It's a Zelda clone. For the most part, it's not a bad game, though. I will say I have been enjoying this. It's just, it doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary, but it doesn't... And this will also happen every now and then if you are using a thumbstick rather than a D-pad. This game really does prefer using keyboards, I would argue, but... But that's not necessarily a deal breaker on its own. The big problem is, of course, once again, the bugs. That is the big issue with this game. And that is really going to be the big question of whether or not you can justify this for 15 bucks. The thing is, the game, like I said, once again, is only 15 bucks though, and it is made by one guy, so... And this is also the first version of it, so hopefully they will be able to iron those issues out. And yes, this will happen in narrow areas more than it should. Admittedly, maybe I'm just not that precise with the controller, maybe, but who knows. But I do know that playing with keyboard is better, at least in making those precise controls in this game. At least from what I played so far. So trying to actually do a proper review is kind of a weird one for me on this. Because I have enjoyed the game, I will definitely say that, but I can definitely see a lot of people having issues with the problems that do exist. And there's other smaller stuff like the trees kind of obscuring your vision. That probably isn't a good idea. And that's another bug there, that you can't get that particular plant to craft with. But on that topic, we are actually in a good position to show you how the crafting works, I suppose, if I can just get to one of the towns. And it is fairly simplistic, so it doesn't actually slow down the game all that much. That's fine, I got plenty of health still, so... Alright, so basically there's two parts to the crafting. You have your armor and weapon upgrades. These are pretty easy to... Well, these you can find at the blacksmith usually. The weapons upgrades, you specifically need a coral, which you can see just right of the spear here. As you can see, I'm out of those, but the armor basically is, you basically just have to find individual armorers and they will, well, improve your armor score, which means you, of course, take less damage. Fairly simple in that regard, so let's try seeing if we can find something to actually craft with. Here we go. This little crafting table, you can create different potions, which give you different abilities depending on what you want to use, as well as some different items such as the Seeker Eyes and all that. So you basically just find these items by defeating enemies, and there you go. So the Elixir Vitae, that's your basic health potion, and we'll do Seeker Eyes, which are a weapon of some sort. And by the way, most of the items in this game are, from what I can tell, not really items that help you traverse the world. There are some that will help you pick up more stuff, of course, pick up heavier items, as well as, of course, the bombs and arrows to unlock new areas, sure. But for the most part, a lot of these are either healing items or weapons of various types. So let's actually put the Seeker Eyes to good use here and see how they work. So they go out at an angle there. Let's see if we can actually... Well, that one was actually pretty reasonably effective, I guess. I'm not sure it's entirely worth making use of. Maybe against higher tier enemies, but Yeah, this game does have some polish that needs to be done to it. And that's what kind of makes it difficult to give this a proper ace impression, because while I have enjoyed the game so far, I can definitely see people having issues with this game as well. Then again, like I said, it is again $15, so whether or not you will personally enjoy it ultimately comes down to your own personal, what you want from this game. But ultimately, yeah, this has been Ocean's Heart. Oh, another thing I should mention, since this is, of course, a Zelda clone, the dungeons themselves are not actually that big of a focus so far from what I can tell. A lot of the dungeons are actually optional. And they're not that big either. There are a few that are mandatory, that are bigger, but for the most part, it is smaller dungeons. So another thing to keep in mind. But they still have, of course, the whole puzzle. I guess part of the reason, by the way, that I'm so... I guess part of the reason why I'm a little bit more forgiving, by the way, with this particular game does have to do with the fact that there's not that many Zelda clones on the PC. There are of course, plenty of Zelda games on Nintendo hardware. So if you have a Switch or something like that, or don't really care about Zelda games all that much, then yeah, you can definitely skip this one. If, however, you really want to get that Zelda fix on the PC, this might actually be a valid way to do it. Despite the problems, I'm sure that the developer that is behind this will iron the issues that do exist out of it. But yeah, this has been Ace playing Ocean's Heart, and it's not a bad game. It's just not really... It's not really an out of the normal game. It's very middle of the road in some respects. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but I can definitely see it not necessarily being the most memorable one. But again, it actually is part of a genre that isn't that heavily. It's not heavily oversaturated on PC. So if you're playing this on PC. So if you want a PC game like this, then this seems to be one of your very few choices really on it. At least from what I've seen. I'm sure a lot of people are now going to be providing me links to a whole bunch of Zelda clones, but to my knowledge, it's mostly JRPGs that I've seen. But yeah, let's go ahead and save, and I will exit out, and this has been Ace with Ocean's Heart. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.